Hello friends, welcome to the new episode of New Tech Dojo, How Big Data is Growing Really Big. Today with me I have James Serra. Hi James, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for asking.
So James currently works with Microsoft as a solution architect specializing in big data and data warehousing. He's been a thought leader in application of big data technologies and including MPP solutions involving hybrid technologies such as relational data, Hadoop, private and public cloud. He's been a regular speaker at the PASS Business Analytics Conference, the PASS Summit, the Enterprise Data World Conference. He's also been a former SQL Server MVP. James has authored a book reporting on MS SQL Server 2012. He also blogs regularly on jamesserra.com. I follow him on Twitter at James Serra. James, he shares amazing content. He spent 25 years in data modeling, data governance, uh, development methodologies. Turns out he hasn't slowed down even a little. According to Microsoft Communities last week, I saw his profile. He had a Community Lead 2018 where he's demonstrated leadership skills to keep the community engaged and healthy. James, it's a privilege to have you on our episode.
Sure. Thanks for that grand introduction.
So James, this podcast is basically for the audience which are generally slightly new to big data or the BI software tools, right? So I think if so, half of it will be like how you progressed in your career and what you think about how big data will grow in the future, and the rest of is you guiding people on what should be their learning path and how should they get started as a career.
Okay.
Okay, so jumping the
Awesome.
first question directly, can you describe big data for a layman?
Sure. I think it's a little misnomer that big data isn't, we use the term big because I like to say it's not the size of the data. It's rather, think of big data as all data. So depending on the size, but also the speed at which the data is incorporated and the type of data, that encapsulates what I would call big data with the idea that we want to capture all the data that could give us impact into looking into the value of that data.
So you also mean that even before 10 or 20 years, big data always existed, just that we didn't give that a name.
Yeah, and it's more relevant now because of the internet and the fact that there's so much data collected because of the internet. And then, in particular, when you look at social media,
Mm-hmm.
and frequently clients that I have are using Twitter data or Facebook data to help them understand what people think of their products or their company and such, as well as using machine learning to find patterns in this data. And then Internet of Things, IoT, has become very big now, where we have devices everywhere. And so that's incorporating a lot of data. It may not be data that is coming over in big chunks, but rather a bunch of little pieces of data that are streaming in that can add a lot of value. So we can pull in that data along with social media data and then data we have already captured in our internal systems and combine it all to get value out of that data, make better business decisions. That's the bottom line is, can I incorporate more data and then make decisions that are added by this additional data that are much better than what life was like before I had this data?
Right. I think it's an excellent way to describe big data. In terms of career, you spent, I think, a couple of more than 2 decades in BI. Can you share your experiences where there were roadblocks and how did you sail through? Because I'm sure that since the technology is emerging, you would have faced a lot of roadblocks too.
Yeah, there's various roadblocks. Some of them are in the career direction I wanted to go with hoping that the company I was working for would understand the value of data warehousing and big data and would allow me to pursue that career path, which I had to do some convincing. Early in my career, I went and sort of as a side project created a data warehouse and dashboards and showed my manager and business users the insights to data that they can get that they never had before. And that sort of opened up a path for them to go, yeah, this is great, do more of this. As and as I progressed through my career, it always required convincing of not only IT but the business people, and it shifted a lot more now into convincing the business decision makers on the value of this data. Because if you ask them what they want, they're just going to regurgitate what they already have. But if you show them the art of the possible by, which could be through nice dashboards or through machine learning apps or even operational reports, but showing data that they've never had before, it opens their eyes, light bulbs go off their heads, and they want more of that. And that can open up the path to building out solutions that incorporate more of that data.
Do you see this resistance among the business users even today, that they require some kind of convincing?
Yes, and our focus at Microsoft has shifted over the years from talking to the IT departments to talking to the business users, because the IT departments a lot of times see any new project as another thing that they have to support and can't always see the value of it. But the business users, when you start showing them how they can do their job better and faster and have more impact with certain types of data, then they get convinced, and they generally have the budget and the timeline, and then they have to go to IT and convince them. But usually they just go to IT and say, we're building a solution now because we see the value of it. So the focus has shifted more to the business users, especially when you can bring them use cases. And we have a whole ton of various use cases that we can apply to that industry to explain to them what they can do with this data that they never thought of before. And it many times opens up their eyes to things they never even comprehended before. And once you give them a little piece of that, then they want more because they come up with additional ideas. Oh, I never thought of using it this way. Well, how about we use it this way too, and this way too, and then wind up snowballing, and leads to a lot of projects that are built using this additional data.
Right, and I even see the new software updates which are coming. They are more intuitive for business users. I mean, I don't require a support of a data architect or a solutions architect completely to get answers to my questions each time.
Yeah, and this is a very interesting area that we have a lot of conversations with the customer on is how can we do self-service BI? And there's been a lot of miscommunication or misunderstanding of something like a data lake where people thought I just put all this data in the data lake and there's this magical land of unicorns and fairies and all the data comes out the way I want it. But the reality is a data lake is just a glorified file folder, and it takes a lot of data governance to set it up correctly, and it takes a lot of work to pull it out and understand it all. And that also usually involves going through multiple iterations of the data. You put in a data lake and then you clean it and master it and join it. And then you move it onto a relational database, because the reality is most business users are not savvy enough to just have data in the data lake and say, hey, go use Hive and Spark and get your data. Well, that's too much for them. So instead, they want the data in a relational database and in the cube where they can just click and drag and not have to worry about how the technology is working behind the scenes, but rather I just can create a dashboard very easily. However, the data lake opens it up for those power users or data scientists who want the data quickly and know how to pull it out. And they have that advantage now because the data is in a data lake and they can get to it right away. The data lake, you'll say, oh, it's schema on read, which is great because that means I can dump any type of data into the data lake, but you have to pay the piper somewhere, and that means when I pull the data out, schema on read, I got to give it some meaning and I got to give it some structure. And so somebody that has to know how to do that when they pull it out, and that's generally for the power users or the data scientists to do.
Right, right. I also checked out the recently you put up a presentation on SlideShare about the new updates Power BI is coming up with. Can you describe few changes? I mean, not just Power BI, but among the BI software tools, on how are they going to have an impact in the industry in the future?
Yeah, Microsoft has invested quite heavily in resources for Power BI, and on a monthly basis they come out with new features, and it's really amazing, and some of it is really awesome. The latest being composite models and data flow. And at a high level, what those allow you to do is what we call in self-service ETL. So instead of having to rely on IT to take the data from the source and put it in the data lake and then move it to a relational database before I can start using it, you now can have end users who are a bit savvy, meaning they're a bit of what I would call a power user, allowing them to use Power BI to pull this data right from the source into its own internal data lake and then generating reports from it. So they can do a lot of that without the involvement of IT. However, I always caution is the end user, while we're giving them enterprise tools, they're not building an enterprise solution in that an end user can go and create something, but that's just for that end user or maybe their group. They're not thinking in enterprise terms. So because of that, when you build out these true enterprise solutions, you need to involve a lot of users, a lot of more work is involved, and you may want to create a enterprise data warehouse and a various cubes and data marts and such, so many people can use the solution instead of just having a handful of people doing it on their own. So there needs to be a lot of thought put into an enterprise solution, designing and understanding before you start to create the solution and make it enterprise available in there. So we've gone a long way into allowing the general end user to use these tools, but think of it as they can be the person that's, instead of going and trying to create business requirements from them and pulling it from them, is you just have them go and use these tools and they pull out the data and they can tell you, hey, this is what we find valuable, and then you can incorporate that into a true enterprise solution.
Mm-hmm. And where do you think big data today isn't there? I mean, I understand the BI tools could do a lot of things, but where do you think it still needs some catching up?
Data governance is the one that I think we need to have better tools to allow that to happen. Too often, companies don't give enough time in project plans onto cleaning and mastering the data. And the worst thing you could do is come out with the solution and generate these reports and dashboards, and the end user goes, this data is not right. And right away, you lost their confidence. So you need to spend more time in making sure this data is clean. And I think the tools that are getting there, when as far as cleaning and cataloging and mastering the data, but they still have a bit of a ways to go. And it's just very challenging because now you're having all this type of data from all these different sources come in, and you just need a way to catalog it better so you're not having duplication of effort where people are adding the same data that's already in the data lake, or they're not cleaning it. So you need that single source of the truth. And that can be very challenging when you have so much data coming into a data lake.
Right. I mean, I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago about how could you incorporate the blockchain technology within so as to improve the data governance. If every device has a copy of some copy of that guarantees the integrity of data, maybe it could help.
Yeah, blockchain is an interesting technology, and it's great in some aspects for it. But you got to, instead of looking at something as this is a great new technology, we need to use it everywhere, which I've seen happen many times. Is you got to understand the specific use cases for it. And blockchain, I think, is very limited. It's generally basically a digital general ledger, and so it's not something that you would use for a data warehouse, and it's something that you maybe can use for data validation, but I've yet to see applied in a way that is easy and useful for that situation. But maybe blockchain would be the technology to allow that to happen.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of participants or audience who are looking forward to create a career in BI and big data. I mean, they keep on asking us in the comments on what is the future of BI and what is the future of big data. What's your view on that?
I would say BI, big data, advanced analytics, AI are by far the best career path when it comes to technologies because of the way to get value out of that data that's becoming very apparent to companies, the way to save money. I have clients who are sometimes wasting hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and through better data, they can save a lot of money by avoiding such things as predictive maintenance on things, or helping increase sales. It just goes on and on with things you can do with machine learning and tools like Power BI. And so when I talk to a lot of kids in college on career paths, and I always say big data is going to be one of the most popular because it's something you can truly see the value out of, as compared to some other roles where they could be very valuable, but it's hard to show that value. With big data, it becomes very apparent. So to me, that's probably the best career to get into going forward.
Mm-hmm. And which kind of professionals do you think will have a natural knack for solving big data problems?
somebody who's very curious and can understand the big picture when it comes to data, to try to marry the various these data lake concepts, and to see how we can pull this all together and make an end user who may know nothing about technology to see the value out of it. So generally, it's the students who understand the technology at a basic level, but don't make that a priority, because as soon as you come into a job, within 6 months, the technology will be completely different because it changes so much. And so what we tend to look for is people who can learn quickly, who can find the shortcuts. And that sometimes just comes with age and experience, how you can filter out all this information to focus on just what's the most important thing. So having a knack for that, and just a passion for learning, and a passion to move out of your comfort zone and learn new things. And if you can do that, you can keep up with the pace of technology, and then it's going to make you very valuable in your career.
Excellent advice. And if somebody wants to self-learn into about a big data technology, what learning path or what author, what YouTube channels would you recommend?
Yeah, a lot of that depends on what type of learner you are. Do you like watching videos? Do you like reading books? Do you like doing lectures? I think I find most people on the internet these days like watching YouTube videos. And so there's a lot of things that are out there, whether it be Channel 9 is one, edx.org is another one. Microsoft's got a number of professional programs that have a path for becoming certified if you take a number of these courses. So they sort of lay out the best courses to take for each subject area. There's sites like Pluralsight and then SQL Pass. There's a lot of good videos on those sites, and so those can be very helpful if you find a particular speaker who you're most can understand very well in the way they present, and then you focus on what that person presents. And then there's a lot of great blogs out there that I read frequently to keep up on this technology. And I always tell people, just focus on a few YouTube videos and a few blogs, and just be consistent with how much time you spend each week to keep up to date on those things. And then certainly events like Microsoft has Ignite right now, and all their sessions are made available almost right away. So you can go through the list and find the ones that you think would be most interesting and watch them.
Right. And one last question. So if I'm already a BI analyst today, what would you recommend? How should I progress next? What should I learn to progress in my career?
I would say the best thing you can do right off the bat is find a mentor. And when I was growing up, we didn't have the internet, so it was hard to find mentors. But nowadays, through LinkedIn, reach out and ask somebody who's in this career, myself included, hey, can you help mentor me? And I do this quite frequently, where I may have touch points with somebody who's a student or young or just starting out in the career where they need some guidance. Because the one thing you don't want to do is go learn a technology and find out that technology is not relevant anymore, or it's not going to help you in your career that much. And so lean on people like me who can go and learn those, and maybe point to a few videos and such, and guide them along the path. So there's many roads you can take, and if you have a mentor that can point you down the right road, it could really speed up your process of building your career and your process of learning. So definitely reach out. It could be through LinkedIn, and you just send emails, and you'll find people are very willing to help.
Sure.
And so that's the number one thing I would say. And then as far as technology, again, it's not so much what you learn, but rather becoming better at learning quickly, adapting. And the saying at Microsoft is be comfortable in being uncomfortable, because because of the change of technology, you have to just learn to jump in and learn something completely new to you.
Excellent. Excellent. James, did you get a chance to look at our YouTube channel, few videos or something?
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on there. I think if you are good at learning on YouTube, it's an excellent choice. And the way I personally learn is by blogging. And what I will do is go out and watch some great videos and then put it in a context that I understand and then write about it. And so it sticks in my brain better. And then you may find other people who think like you do and find your blog valuable because you put it in a way that they understand it as well as you do. But those YouTube videos are to me the most important thing to start out with to learn a technology.
Really great advice. I've actually seen your blog. You've put on more than what, 100 posts till now?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm over 500
Oh,
now
oh
because I've
my
been doing
God.
it for 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
And many times people will send me an email saying, "Hey, I've been reading your blog for years," and I think because I've been doing it so long, it comes up quite high in a lot of the search engines, sometimes
Yeah.
higher than Microsoft's own blogs. So people find it, and I get a lot of traffic that way, and that's great because it inspires me to keep doing it because it can be tough to find the time every week to write a blog, but I do it to catalog my own thoughts, and sometimes I forget about technology, and I need to go back and reread my own blogs because I always tell people when I learn something new, that means something else in my brain has to be dumped out because I only have so much room in there. And when I need to go back and retrieve that information, I go through my own blogs and reread them, and then it becomes familiar to me again.
Right. So, friends, I have put James's blog in the description. Please bookmark it on the Chrome browser. So yeah, here we come to the end. James, thank you so much for taking your time. It's an honor to have you on our episode and really great advice for newbies.
Yeah, great to help. I love having these conversations. I wish I can do them day in and day out because I love helping other people. And so I was very happy to do this.
Okay, have a great day, James. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you so much.